For some of you, I understand you know this stuff and it's a review. And for others, maybe you haven't thought about it in this way. And so it's something new to look at. So bear with me. If you know all this stuff, we'll run through it as best we can. So again, introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. It's not personal essay. It should be first essay. Okay. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk with you about the sentences that belong in each of these sections. Now, let me start out by saying some of you are better writers than others. Some of you are more accomplished writers. You have your own way of writing, and that's just fine. I'm not trying to change the way you write. On the other hand, I will be presenting to you the various aspects of formal writing that really should be included in any piece of formal writing. And if you haven't done much formal writing, certainly you can start by simply implementing the suggestions that I'm making here and then move on from there. Okay, writing is an art more than a science, but there are certainly very basic things that need to be included in formal writing. So the first thing we'll look at are these body paragraphs. And we'll take a look at the types of sentences that belong in a body paragraph. First of all, there's what we usually call the topic sentence. Now, the topic sentence expresses the main idea of the paragraph. Each paragraph should address or present or discuss one specific idea for the entire paragraph. You might have smaller ideas, related ideas in the paragraph, but the whole paragraph is basically expressing one major idea. And the topic sentence is the sentence that expresses that main idea of the paragraph. Now, for beginning writers, it's really useful for the topic sentence to be the first sentence in the paragraph. But it does not need to be the first sentence in the paragraph. It could be a sentence, and it could be the third sentence in the paragraph or the last sentence in the paragraph. In fact, the topic sentence doesn't even need to be one sentence. The main idea of the paragraph could be expressed partially in one sentence, partially in another sentence, partially in a third sentence. So it's not a precise requirement that the topic sentence be the first sentence and that there be one sentence only that expresses the main idea of the paragraph. However, again, if you're a struggling writer or a new writer, or you want to get used to writing in a more formal way, start out by making the topic sentence, which expresses the main idea of the paragraph, as your first sentence. One of the things you can do when you write your topic sentence is to use what we call emphatic order. Emphatic simply means strong. So strong order means that you are really going to direct the reader as to what the points are, what the steps are in your argument, what the points are in your presentation. And what you do, how you do that is by having the topic sentence of each of your paragraphs begin with a phrase such as, first of all, or the first thing I'm going to discuss, or the first major point related to this. And then the second paragraph says, second of all, or the second major point. And then the third says, third of all, or thirdly, or the third major point. So I will give you some examples of emphatic order separately, but that's what emphatic order means. And it's a very useful way to structure your essays, first, second, third, or firstly, secondly, thirdly, or first of all, second of all, third of all. It's very useful because it lays out a roadmap for the reader so the reader can easily follow your argument. After all, you're saying first, second, third. Not only that, but it provides automatic transitions from one paragraph to the next, because when the first paragraph starts firstly and the second paragraph starts secondly, it's very clear that you've moved on in that second paragraph to another point. So it's easier for the reader to follow. And it takes the place usually of having to build in some kind of transition, some kind of movement from one idea to the next, since that emphatic order, that first of all, second of all, third of all, structures that and explains that to your reader. And it makes it easier for the reader to follow. You may have seen this in writing that you looked at. Textbooks often will do that. So first sentence in your body paragraph would be a topic sentence. Then we do something which makes the writing very formal. Define your terms. Take a look at the topic sentence that you've written, and you see if there are any words that you've used, any terms that you've used in that topic sentence that need to be clarified. First of all, in English, we know that many words have more than one meaning. And secondly, we also know that people look at words and look at phrases and come away from those with different ideas about what those things mean. And you, as a writer, want to be sure that the reader is using or understanding the words that you're using in the way you want them to be understood. And so one of the steps we do in formal writing, and we do it repeatedly, not just here, is to take a look at what we've just written and make sure that the words that we've used are clearly defined so that the reader can follow the argument, the logic that you're presenting. The reader can follow it clearly and not go off on some tangent because they thought the words meant something differently. Your words could very well mean something differently, but you want them to mean something specific. And so that's what you want to do. You want to define your terms to make your ideas clear, precise, and exact. Okay. Then you do another step, which is one of the things that makes the writing more formal. It is the role of the writer, it's the job of the writer to express what's important. Here you have a main idea for this paragraph, and therefore what you need to do in this paragraph is communicate to your reader the reason that this main idea is important. And sometimes it can be the sentence, this is important because, or this idea, whatever it is important because, and then you just say the reason that it's important. Sometimes you can you can ask a rhetorical question. Why is this important? Or you can even ask a question. What's important about this idea? Instead of the words, this idea, you actually put in the idea. So you can do this in many different ways, but what you need to do more than anything else is to communicate the significance of this main idea to your reader. Sometimes it's the significance to the topic. Sometimes it's the significance to the argument, to the presentation that you're making. And sometimes it's simply standalone significance of what it is that you're saying. So you have a topic sentence, you have a paragraph which has a main idea. You express that main idea in the topic sentence. Make sure to clarify. You always do that. I won't repeat that over and over again. And then you say why this main idea is important. There's that define, clarify your terms. You take a look at your statement of importance and see, can this be misconstrued? Can someone not understand what I'm saying? Are some of the words that I've used here, can they be thought of differently or reacted to differently, and therefore will interfere with the communication that I want to have with my reader? That's what we do. We do that all the time. And then you do something, again, that is characteristic of formal writing, which is you give an example. This happens in every paragraph, and in your essays, in your paragraphs, you need to include examples. Often those examples will come from the documents that we're reading. Sometimes those examples will come from the research that you do, the sources that you find that you're going to add to your essay. But you use an example that illustrates the importance of the main idea. So it's a little tricky, right? You have a main idea, you express why it's important, and then you give an example that illustrates, that it explains or demonstrates the importance of the main idea. So you begin to see how all of these sentences hang together and focus on the same goal, which is to communicate this main idea, say why it's important. The example is there. As I said earlier, often examples are the easiest way to communicate the significance of things or the way in which you want to explain something. And so this is one of the things that you will do. One of the really creative aspects of what you do is to find examples, develop examples, use examples that help to express, that help to communicate the importance of the main idea. Then you take another step, which is also very important, which is that you explain the example to your reader. You explain how or why that example illustrates the importance of the main idea. You don't leave it up to the reader to make his or her connection by themselves. You make the connection for the reader. You make the connection between the example and the significance of the main idea. Make that connection explicitly for the reader. So those are the key things that you do in each of the body paragraphs. Now, as I said before, if you're a beginning writer, you might actually want to follow that as an outline. If you're a more experienced writer, you can mix it up, right? You don't have to follow this particular order. If you don't know what to do this. After a while, you'll develop your own writing skill, your own way of writing, your own style of writing, and that will be a good thing because that will fit with the way you think, and therefore will allow you to express yourself in writing much more easily. But certainly, this is what you're trying to accomplish. This is what you're trying to accomplish in a formal writing paragraph. Here's emphatic order. I talked about it before. Just some examples here of how to put together. You would start your first sentence of your first body paragraph with first, the first sentence of your second body paragraph with second, the first sentence, topic sentence of your third paragraph with third, or firstly, secondly, thirdly, or first of all, second of all, third of all, or as you can see, this one, which uses many more words. So if you're worried about words, some writers are worried about words, you find it a little bit more difficult to put in enough words in your essay. So use a construction like this one instead of just the one word. And of course, you've got whatever 70 words here, many more words to get your word count much more quickly. But again, this is just an example of the techniques that you can use for emphatic order. And if you say first, say second. If you say firstly, say second. If you say first of all, say second of all. So stay with these patterns. Don't mix it up. Don't say first, then secondly, then third of all. Just stay with this. One of the reasons for that is the consistency. Once again, you want your reader to be able to follow and understand the argument, the presentation that you're making in your writing. And when you're consistent, when you do it in a consistent fashion, then your reader will recognize that consistency, become comfortable with it, come to expect it, and it's one of the things that can help the reader to understand what you're saying because they understand the pattern with which your communication is written in, the pattern that it's written in. That's all very important. It's important for your reader to be comfortable with your writing, for your writing to be clear, exact, precise, so that your reader can understand your writing, and for the flow, for the progress of your writing to be something that the reader can recognize. So when you use emphatic order like this, then it makes it really clear for the reader and they can follow it real easily. When somebody jumps around, like when you see a movie sometimes and the time sequence is, they start out and then they say, well, now it's 6 weeks earlier, and then they go back to the present, and now it's 2 months earlier, and then they go back to the present. They do all that stuff to make the movie more interesting, but it does present a challenge sometimes for any of us watching a movie to remember which time frame we're talking about and what the sequence is. Some people find that very confusing. As that's certainly not what you want to do when you're doing formal writing. You want to lay things out in a more precise, exact, and clear fashion.